Hello and welcome back to Civil Discourse, a program sponsored by the American Civil Liberties Union of Greater Jacksonville, Florida. And today I'm very pleased to tell you we have some very powerful guests with a lot to say on a very troubling subject. The Jacksonville Sheriff's Office has been accused, and it's in the newspapers and all over the news media, of using excessive force and deadly force in situations that don't warrant them. What is the community going to do about it? How are we going to address this? In January, we celebrate the life of Martin Luther King, Reverend Martin Luther King Jr. In February, it's Black History Month. And today, on Civil Discourse, I have two wonderful gentlemen. One of them is the president of the NAACP of Jacksonville, Florida, Isaiah Rumlin. Isaiah, thank you for being here. Welcome. And another gentleman is Elder Lee Harris, Pastor Harris, from the Interdenominational Ministerial Alliance. Welcome, Pastor. Thank you for being here with me. My name is Ken Hurley, and you're watching a program called Civil Discourse. I want to read a quote from the NAACP acting president, Dennis Cortland, if I can. We call on the entire community to join us in the fight against this epidemic because the horrendous results in racial profiling embedded in racially discriminatory systems affect us all. Isaiah, can I start with you? Is that what we have with the JSO? Is this pervasive? Is this systemic?
I think it is, and if we look at it, going back several years ago, looking at the Brendan Butler case, looking at the Shirley Ansley case, Mr. Lewis Shields, all of these folks have died while in custody of the Jackson Sheriff's Office. Not only those three, but just as early as 5 weeks ago, we've had 3 deaths at the hands of people in the custody of the Jackson Sheriff's Office, and it appears that there's some type of a pattern, and no one life should be taken as a result of a misdemeanor or while in custody of Jacksonville Sheriff's Office. There's just too much excessive force being used on our citizens in this county. And that's one reason why we demonstrated on January 1, calling for this community to support a citizen review board.
Pastor, how do you respond? Is it systemic? Is it problematic? Or are these isolated incidences?
I'm a newcomer to Jacksonville. Been here 12 years, if you consider that a newcomer. But I've been placed in the position of trying to lead a group of people, pastor people, serve as president of the Interdenominational Ministerial Alliance, IMA. Mm-hmm. And I find that it is very much systemic because once we started to look at it through our Justice Committee and started to work with a coalition to look at what has been taking place here in Jacksonville, history proves that it is systemic. I found articles all the way back to 1968, 73, back through the 80s, 90s, and even in the 2000s. We're looking at cases, situations where brutality has been used excessively in the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office, and too many deaths, too many persons have died while in the custody of the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office, or either while being pursued by the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office. Those, the ones that hits the media, are the ones that we know about, but many others, while being chased or I was just told the other day that there was a possibility of many cases wherein in the pursuit of persons, they die by being pursued by JSO, people die.
Mm-hmm. What happened, Ken, was that due to the death of Mr. Sammy Evans, in the weeks after his death, we immediately called for a public hearing of citizens who have been brutalized and victimized at the hands of the Sheriff's Department officers. And during that hearing, or during those hearings, over 37 people came and gave testimony, not sworn testimony, but recorded testimony, telling us their experiences from being arrested or while being arrested due to anywhere from a misdemeanor to whatever crime you want to call it. But we have people with broken arms, just all types of injuries that have been inflicted upon them at the hands of a police officer. And this is unacceptable. And if the community would have been there, they would have heard it themselves. Even our state president, who was presiding at the hearing, she asked me after the hearing, she said, Rumlin, did you really know that it was this bad? I said, we had an idea that it was bad, but not this bad. And we have the documentation right here. I mean, we have the recorded statements. We have families wherein they don't even know what happened to their loved one from being shot, committed suicide, never got clear answers from the sheriff's office.
Well, let's just say what's happened to Sammy Evans. Maybe some people are not aware of what happened to Sammy Evans. He was he was arrested for the suspicion of having an open container across the street from his home. Is that correct?
I am not sure if that's the case.
What do you?
Now,
how do you say?
When I say I'm not sure if that's the case.
What puts doubt in your mind?
Because when I read one of the police reports, it said that as I approached the intersection of Hubbard and 28th Street, I noticed 3 African-American males standing in the middle of the street. It says, as I approached them in my marked car, they took refuge, they concealed themselves in the yard of 2805. And he says, as we began to question the individuals, he says, I noticed an open container on the inside coat pocket of this person, and this was Willie James Jackson, not Sammy Lee Evans, who he noticed the open container in the inside coat pocket. He then began to proceed to arrest him while Caleb Underwood was talking to Evans and while another person was talking to the other one. It was 3 persons there that they noticed. I'm not sure how many, when one person came, the one officer came, then I'm told that 4 others came. Why did they necessarily have to come? Because they saw 3 African Americans standing in the street talking. Then,
is that why they stopped in the first place?
That's why they
stopped. I mean, they're just out, what are you doing here? Why are you? And this is in front of Mr. Evans' home.
Home, yes.
Correct?
So they stepped across off the street into the yard, and it has a 4-foot chain link fence. So how did they conceal themselves behind a 4-foot chain link fence? They proceeded to ask the lady at the home, did they want them to arrest them for trespassing? She responded, no, I know them. How, when did the arrest take place? I am not sure. Maybe Mr. Rumlin or someone else has gotten some information, but we do know that as a result of that, Mr. Sammy Lee Evans died with handcuffs behind his back.
That's my understanding, that Mr. Underwood was the arresting officer. Is
Yes.
that correct? And there was something that caused Mr. Underwood to physically grab Sammy Evans and take him down, and in the process of going down, the way I understand it, Mr. Evans' neck was broken.
That's exactly what we understand also, that as he was being thrown to the concrete or into the concrete, his neck was popped. Witnesses actually heard the popping sound of his neck being broken. And the sheriff going to have to do a better job of training his officers. There need to be better sensitivity training.
We agree completely. Mr. Underwood was a rookie cop.
He was a rookie cop, but even you got experienced cops out here who, if you're going to handcuff an individual, then go ahead and handcuff him. Don't throw him up beside the vehicles and on hoods and into concrete and into the
That exasperates
streets.
the issue.
Absolutely, and all of this is just unacceptable. We will not stand for it, and we will continue to demonstrate, and we will continue to talk with city council, talk with the mayor, talk with the sheriff, and do whatever is necessary in order that these things stop.
Pastor,
You know, you say Mr. Underwood was a rookie cop.
I'm not trying to excuse it.
No,
I'm just pointing that
probably
out.
by our standards of length of time, he was a rookie cop. But in the research that we've been able to do and to look at, Mr. Underwood and the JSOs, Mr. Underwood was a trained person, trained to utilize force. I would encourage your listeners, your viewers, to find out about the police corps, which is a special unit that is trained right here in Jacksonville, that they are housed away from. And in their own recruiting pamphlet, it says that they will spend 21 weeks in a place and designed to deal with mind and body. They're recruiting certain type of people. I'm told from someone that through the training academy, I'm not sure how true it is, so you can't, but these persons that are trained in the police corps are trained probably 10 levels above the normal police training because they're recruited for special training. It's a special unit that is recruited, that is funded by the U.S. Justice Department. We did find this out. And these persons, I call them the Delta Force of the police office. They're the special forces of the police. They're the SEALs, the Navy SEALs of the police.
Okay.
And these persons are trained to kill, trained to use deadly force.
There's a point in time when deadly force is probably acceptable by most people who would be viewing this. But in this situation, it is outrageous that it ever came to that.
It's
beyond my comprehension that a man across his street having an open container, allegedly having a, that's now even in dispute, winds up that evening dead, a grandfather. It's just something that, if this doesn't outrage the community, where is the community?
And Ken, we have no problem with officers protecting themselves if their life is in danger. But if their life is not in danger, there should not be necessary for excessive force.
They had already controlled him.
Absolutely. We know that officers are trained to protect themselves, and we have no problem with that. But when excessive force and when deadly force is being used, then yes, we have some concerns about that.
Let me say this. You know, we said we should be outraged when a person dies. But I become outraged when I see excessive force being used, period. And it has been utilized to the extent wherein they don't care who they utilize it on. The president of the NAACP, Mr. Isaiah Rumlin, excessive force was utilized on him, that to pull his whole rotator cuff out of socket when he was trying to go to his office.
Minister Muhammad.
Minister Desmond Muhammad of the Nation of Islam was excessive force, made stand, the spread eagle to up against the guard. If you talk to a number of people, interview people that have been stopped by JSO and the force that has been utilized, they want to put people on the back of their cars or upside their cars, spread eagle, or just questioning.
Okay, let's take a break right now. We'll be right back. You're watching Civil Discourse. How does this make you feel? Are you outraged? Can you get outraged? Can you get involved? The community needs you. We'll be right back.
Larry Parker, National Honor Society student. Patricia Stevenson, stockbroker. Hector DeSario, systems analyst. Driving while black or brown isn't a crime. If it's happened to you, call us at 1-877-6-PROFILE and arrest the racism.
This little light of mine, I'm gonna let shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine. Let it shine. Let it shine.
In these turbulent times, let us not erode our liberties, for they make America a beacon of hope for all to see.
Let it shine.
You're watching Civil Discourse, a program brought to you by the American Civil Liberties Union of Greater Jacksonville, Florida. My name is Ken Hurley, and we're here with Pastor Lee Harris and the president of the NAACP of Jacksonville, Isaiah Rumlin. And we're talking about outrage and how the community, in our view, needs to get involved and create something called a civilian review board. We could spend hours probably trying to paint the picture of the JSO and some of its members out of control. I don't know how broad a brush we need to go with on this. You can speak to that. Certainly, I think we might be able to agree that it's not every officer in the JSO, otherwise we would really have chaos. But all you need to have is one or two officers that do not follow what we consider humane treatment of those that they were in place to serve. Remember, they're there to protect and serve, not to create havoc or to kill people. So in situations that do not warrant it. So you mentioned, Isaiah, the Civilian Review Board, and they can take all sorts of forms and shapes. If we were to be involved in trying to create one, I would want to have one with some teeth, one that has subpoena power, one in which you have complete access to what the JSO has and cooperation from them.
We agree to the point that all officers of Jacksonville Sheriff's Office are not bad officers. There's some good officers there, both black and white. But for those that chooses to use excessive force, those officers need to be dealt with. And they need to be dealt with from a different standpoint from officers trying to judge officers. They cannot, you're just not going to get a fair hearing with policemen policing themselves. That's the reason why we call them for a citizen review board with subpoena power in order to empower the board to review each and every case that comes before that board, and that those officers are disciplined in the way that they need to receive the discipline for whatever excessive force has been done. What we would have to do is get with City Council, get with the Sheriff Department, and see what's best for Jacksonville. What's, you know, what type people need to be on there, or how will it be structured. But something need to be done, and something need to be done right away.
I agree.
I don't feel that it needs to be one that is appointed by the mayor, appointed by the sheriff, because then he who does the appointing sets the course of which way things go. I think that it needs to have a creative flavor in order that it will accomplish the goals that is set forth. One of the reasons my concern, and why we discuss time and time again why there is a great need for a citizen review board with subpoena power, is because simply every time an officer goes before the internal affairs, that's them policing themselves, investigating themselves, it's sort of like me having a take-home test and then got my family grading it so that I could pass to get a job. It comes back justifiable. Homicide, the officer was justified in the force that they used. It comes back justified. You know, it's systemic in the problem that we see. If it was not continuously coming back justified, then the citizens might be able to say, well, they're doing it fair. But when we know that it's not justified, it is never justified when you have people, several officers, come with where people are unarmed, no threat to them, but yet somebody ends up dead.
Correct. The way Miami had to do this is put it on a referendum and put it to the people for a vote. And then it had to be, and then they voted overwhelmingly after so many deaths at the hands of officers there. And they do have a civilian review board that does have subpoena power, and most law enforcement agencies that I'm aware of, when this is suggested, are very reticent, resistant to even the discussion of this. Mr. Rutherford, Sheriff Rutherford, I haven't spoken with him. I don't know where he's at with this. I would hope that he might welcome this. I know he called on the FBI to come and investigate the death of Sammy Evans and Ezra Jones, and I know he called on the state attorneys to make an investigation. That's, in his mind, outside of his agency, and might give you that third-party arm's-length investigation that we seek, but it is not, it's not the civilian review board of people made up of the community doing their investigation.
That was after the request, after the meeting of December 6th with the NAACP, the Jacksonville Leadership Coalition, the Baptist ministers, all of the entities coming together, meeting with the sheriff's office and demanding, requesting, asking, insisting that outside person, that this situation does not go to the internal affairs, but there be outside persons, and he had no other alternative, or else it would have continued to be more of an issue with us if he continued to do business as usual. It may appear that he's invited them in, but we wanted to make sure that there would be an outside, another eye.
And not only the FBI, but also the Justice Department is investigating Mr. Evans' case and Mr. Jones' case. And but that's still, you know, in lieu of all of that, we're still calling on a citizen review board with subpoena power.
We join that call of the American Civil Liberties Union of Greater Jacksonville, Florida, exactly what you're saying. And if there's a time and place that we can join with you and stand side by side in the community, and we will do the same as well. This is something that is near and dear to our hearts, and we were very big at helping Miami get theirs, but it did take years. It's not something you pick up the phone and say, hey, we want to start this. It takes people getting involved, such as yourselves, organizations such as yourself, and the community showing up at city council meetings, meeting with the mayor, meeting with the JSO, and meeting with the people that have the power to actually put this kind of a board in place and give it the funding that it needs to survive.
Let me say something, Ken, and I'm concerned also about a sheriff's department that needs to have some oversight from the community or from some authority that is not going to be prejudiced by the JSO. Because of all of the issues that has basically been surrounding the brutality of individual citizens, I mentioned to you the president of NAACP, one of the leaders of the Nation of Islam, Desmond Muhammad. We talked about the young man, Philip Edwards, that got his arm broke when he was waiting to his sister to bring him the keys to his car by an officer. There's case after case after case after case. But one of the things that angers us and concerns us a lot right now is the next step that we are seeing coming forth, and that's the use of tasers. Tasers are deadly.
Yes,
in North
absolutely.
America alone, in the past year or so, there's been over 74 deaths that has taken place. In Florida, I believe it's 11 deaths. I saw on television in Miami, they utilized tasers on a 6-year-old boy. You mean to tell me that a trained officer cannot deal with a 6-year-old boy?
But not only are death occurring, but also the results of injuries, paralysis, or just all kind of injuries that are taking place as a result of these tasers. And now we're going to put it into our public school system. I mean, that's unacceptable.
Oh, my goodness. Now, let me say that I'm all in favor of finding less lethal ways to subdue a person who is out of control. But I believe at this point, from what I've learned about tasers, the tasers are lethal and should and must only ever be used when the need for deadly force is to be used. We don't need to be electrocuting our school children. This is absolutely ludicrous and dangerous. It is wrong, in my opinion. And I think the company is named Taser International. They are under investigation by the Security Exchange Commission, and part of their investigation is the claims that they made up front. In other words, they tested these things, and maybe they knew that they were lethal. They're certainly lethal if you have a heart ailment or a weak heart or a pacemaker, or you're on medication, or you're just a frail individual. And there's no way that an officer in a school is going to be able to assess a child as to whether or not that person will be able to stand the jolt.
500 volts of electricity going through your body.
No, 50,000.
50,000. 50,000. Yeah,
Let me tell you something which really floored me. To read the Deadly Force Manual of Jacksonville Sheriff's Office, dated 9/1/04 by Sheriff Rutherford, that has been approved. In there, in one of the sections there, I can give you the section and number and all, it talks about tasers in deadly force. So evidently this has been coming down the pipe, and they knew that they would move to this, but there's something unusual about it. It says that you cannot use tasers on animals, but it's all right to use them on human beings. Why not on animals?
That's a good question.
There's another question. There's another concern
that's kill the animal.
Yeah. There's another concern that we have that's written in their policy, in their matrix of how to utilize. It says cannot be used within closer than 3 feet or not farther than 21 feet. The other thing that it says, if you hits in the upper torso or the organs of the face, the officer cannot remove the prongs. They have to call an emergency medical technician to come and do that. What kind of trauma is going to be left on a kid or an individual?
And why do we need them in the school system?
You're absolutely right.
That's the question. Are we asking, how many times has deadly force been needed to be used in the school system? Do we have any stats on this, or are we just accepting that we need tasers because they're less lethal? And gentlemen, you're not going to believe this, but we're out of time. I'm going to ask you both to come back, please. This is a huge, huge discussion. I appreciate it, Pastor. You've been wonderful. This has been Civil Discourse. My name is Ken Hurley. You've been watching a program sponsored by the American Civil Liberties Union. We're going to pick up this discussion at a later date. Thank you. You have been watching a public access television program called Civil Discourse, sponsored by the American Civil Liberties Union of Greater Jacksonville, Florida. The ACLU is a private, nonprofit, nonpartisan membership organization. Our mission is to protect and advance the civil liberties and civil rights guaranteed by the United States Constitution, especially the principles contained in the Bill of Rights. We want to hear from you. Send us an email, share your views and opinions. If you're interested in appearing on the program, let us know. Friend or foe, we want you on the show. You may contact the ACLU in the following ways. Our telephone number is 904-396-5242. Our post office box is 5331 Jacksonville, Florida 32247. And our email address is aclujax@yahoo.com. My name is Ken Hurley. Thank you for participating in Civil Discourse.
You're watching Local Access, Channel 29, exclusive programming for Comcast subscribers.